Welcome back to Next Gen Investing. It's now time to discuss some of these major takeaways from AI events that occurred throughout this past week, as we've seen some volatility in names like Salesforce, as well as, of course, Oracle, as we just discussed. But joining us now to provide some more clarity on some key takeaways from these events is Cory Johnson, Chief Market Strategist at Epistrophe Capital Research. So, Cory, thank you so much for being with us on this Friday. Really excited to get your thoughts here. We'll start off with Salesforce as what's really driving some of the momentum behind its AI narrative, because I know it has not been seen as a leader in that space, as it's right now concerned with its dominance and its overall sales platform, that we could be eroding that real true dominance in their market share.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Agentic AI was that was all that Salesforce talked about all week long, and it seems to be the mantra coming from CEO Mark Benioff. Agentic. I mean, it was exhausting to hear the conversations about that. But it is truly a change in the way that their software works. I think for those who don't use Salesforce every day, it's hard to imagine the rest of us who do use Salesforce every day, and businesses that just simply run on all kinds of Salesforce properties. But what's interesting about Salesforce is at a point where its growth is all about acquisitions. And these giant acquisitions that I think have actually, they don't get enough credit for how good they've done with these acquisitions of things like MuleSoft and now Informatica coming up here, that they're trying to close that deal. But those businesses have been growing faster under the Salesforce umbrella and under the Salesforce sales organization than they were before they got acquired. It was exactly what you want to see, which is Salesforce cutting the costs in these deals and growing the businesses faster than when they were independent. But that is not the magic from which AI fortunes will be made. It is really going to be about a new and innovative product. And I think Mark Benioff knows that, which is why the focus was so much on Agentic AI. They talked a lot at the conference finally about average contract value and how the average contract value of their new deals is bigger than their old deals, and that's going to play out over the next 12 and 18 months into rising revenues for Salesforce.
Okay, so when we talk about, I mean, you mentioned so many of the deals it's had. I always tend to think of Salesforce as like the real M&A king, frankly, is how I always saw them when they were first emerging as this real leader in tech. But now, as far as their AI business, I mean, growth expectations there, how big has that become?
Well, there's what they say it is, and then there's the question of what it actually is. What is really AI and what isn't AI? And so as part of the narrative, they're talking about some really big, multi-$100 million numbers, and even growing into the very near future. But the proof's going to be in the pudding when we see how these products are actually being used. I think that all of our interactions with software and with computers are changing really rapidly as AI tools, we can call them agentic tools if you want, but as those AI tools are solving a lot of the problems for us in a faster and more efficacious way. Salesforce is certainly talking a big game here, but we'll see if what ultimately matters here is free cash flow. And you can't get free cash flow without profits, and you can't get profits without growing revenue. So they've set some really big targets for growing revenue, and now they're going to hit those numbers. And whether those are customers using things that have a little bit of AI in them or a lot of AI in them, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. They've got to sell a lot.
I mean, absolutely. And so as far as now going forward with Salesforce, what do you foresee being their major headwind? Like, what is a near-term hurdle that they must, still prove themselves for to be able to say they're a real formidable force in AI?
So I think because of the tools of AI, we're going to see a lot of companies emerge out of nowhere, and some companies that are startups now that will be great big giant companies in the future, companies like OpenAI that were not much 3 years ago and are now the arguably most important businesses in the world. And so those average contract values are going to matter to Salesforce, but so will the number of customers that they have. They have to continue to add customers and figure out how to get those customers spending more and more as they grow. And I think that those average customer values, we're going to be paying very careful attention to that when they report quarterly earnings, as well as the number of customers in the platforms that they have.
Okay, and so now to shift gears to Oracle, which is, I mean, still, I'd say one of the most dominant forces in all of AI across the broader market. Obviously not seeing that same move today, but I mean, they're predicting right now some of their cloud business will be about 35% larger than the entirety of their business right now. I mean, this is insane to me that we're not seeing this then translate.
Wait, you've been reading my tweets?
Did you tweet about this?
I tweeted that yesterday.
That is so fun. Well, Gravevine's thing like that, I guess. That was the most staggering part of the entire thing.
It's staggering.
So then why are we seeing this move to the downside today?
Now, full disclosure, I own Oracle shares. I've done work with Oracle. I have some friends who work at Oracle who I care about deeply. So I'm totally biased. So take that into account. But what my big takeaway from Oracle AI world, forget today's move in the price. When you look at your long-term chart, which you guys have got on the screen right now, that sell-off today doesn't matter much, I would say. The numbers they put up, the predictions they put up, and Oracle's been pretty good about beating numbers over the years. Not always, but beating numbers over the years. These are staggering numbers, as you said. They are predicting fantastic growth. And one wonders how a company that really wasn't in the data center business 7, 8 years ago in any meaningful way is kind of emerging as a leader here, competing with Amazon Web Services, with Microsoft and Google out there as well. And I think when you think about AI, what is the food that AI eats, right? What is the fuel that, to mix my metaphors, the fuel that runs AI engines? It's data. And no one is closer to data than Oracle. So Oracle's building these AI tools right on top of the data stack, where companies already have their data. They don't have to go out and buy new tools to migrate the data into an AI engine and figure out how the AI can interpret the data and how it can access it and how fast it can get to it and what's public data and what's private data and what one user can see, and you build an AI query on and another user is not allowed to see what's personal information for a worker that a worker is allowed to see and a boss might not be, healthcare records and so on, a boss might not be able to. These are complicated issues that sit at the data layer right where Oracle is. So they have a tremendous advantage if they can exploit that into being the AI tool of choice, not just the data center hosting opportunity that they might present. And that was my big takeaway. Is again, I'm totally biased. I own a lot of the stock, at least a lot for the Johnson family. But it was a really impressive sort of many days of innovation. And talking to people who are building out the data centers. I talked to people who are focused exclusively on networking products for inside Oracle data centers only, and how they're rewiring the notion of how a data center connects to another piece in a data center in a way that suggests leadership, not just an and-one offering that's similar to what their competitors have. I thought it was super impressive, and I think that those numbers that they put up as projections were, jaw-dropping, stunning.
I mean, they absolutely were. And even, I would say, my own bias aside, I mean, this is staggering growth for a company that is as massive and as long-standing as Oracle has become. And you mentioned the word innovative. It's never the way I would have described Oracle 5, 10 years ago, but that's truly what it's become. And so I think that I'm sure your answer here, but of the two, what would you really say right now is winning amongst the foray into AI?
Well, look, it isn't questionably Oracle just because it's such a bigger business, and the OCI build-out, the data center build-out, is so massive. The partnerships that they've made with AMD and NVIDIA, and obviously the sword of Damocles here is, can OpenAI access the revenues, or the money, I should say, it's never going to be not even revenues, but can they access enough capital to pay Oracle what they've promised to pay Oracle? And it is an open question, and it's one that a lot of us were talking about in the halls of the Venetian in the last week, is, that we've gone from a world where, the too big to fail institutions that could cripple the global economy a year ago were banks, right? It was JP Morgan, it was Morgan Stanley, it's Goldman Sachs. Now the too big to fail institution is OpenAI. And if OpenAI cannot come up with the capital to fulfill their deals with AMD, Broadcom, NVIDIA, and Oracle, what happens to the global markets? I'm not saying they're not going to be able to, and I certainly hope that they will. But it is a more risky proposition to have the weight of the world's finances on the shoulders of Sam Altman than it was Jamie Dimon a year ago. And I think that's where the world's sitting right now, with the concentration in the big tech names into the S&P 500 and the global economy. And this is going to be a really interesting few years here to cover technology. I'm thrilled that both of us get to do it.
I know we definitely will have no shortage of things to discuss. That's how I feel every single week. It's like, what a week, we say every single week. So fully in agreement there, but so appreciate your time on this Friday. Cory Johnson, Chief Market Strategist at Apostrophe Capital Research.